Hello there, I'm Jimmy Vegas and welcome to the 18th video in a series of game development tutorials on how to make your own visual novel style game in Unity. In this tutorial we'll be covering some save game functionality as well as loading the game. Remember to subscribe and click the notification bell to stay up to date with every tutorial I upload. Feel free to leave a comment and drop a like. I also have a Patreon page where you can help be a part of this channel. You'll also find all the scripts and the assets to this series there too, along with plenty of other things. You can also now join as a free member. Now, on with the tutorial. So obviously with most games these days, you have some kind of save functionality. And with this sort of game, it's much easier to just kind of allow it to somewhat auto-save. You could do a manual save, and what we'll do is we'll use something called player prefs to set certain values so we know the game state can be saved. You can then incorporate that as you would wish to create manual saves. So first and foremost, what we will need to do is we'll need to go to the scene where we first need to set our save point. And that will be the park scene. So if we go to scenes and click on park scene, and in here we have scene control, and in there is scene 02 event. So we need to go into scene 02 event. Now, this first save state will be as soon as the scene loads, because that's when we want it to save. So ideally what we need to do is set it as probably the very first thing that happens within the start method. And to do that, we can simply use an integer, i.e. save states 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So let's say you've got, I don't know, 20 scenes in your game and you want each scene to be saved as you go into it, you would just number them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there's no point in having scene 1, which is the class scene, as a save point because that would just be a new game. So we're going to start saving from number 2, the second one, which is this scene 02. Now, a player pref, what is it? Well, it's a way of storing information inside Unity itself. So if you were to, let's say, play the game, get to the second scene, close the game, you could then take it and load it. So it's like think of it as a bit of a save file. It's not the best way of saving games. There are multiple different ways, but they're much more advanced. We just need something simple to kind of get ourselves going here. So how do we do this? Well, as soon as we get into void start, we say player prefs dot set int, and all that means is it's short for set an integer, and in brackets we need to put the name of our specific player pref and the value we want to set. So in this case we can call this absolutely anything, so we'll call it load state, and that has to be in quotes, comma, and then the value. So in this case we'll say 2 because it is scene number 2, semicolon, and save that script. So that means that every time we come into this place, we will set the load state as 2. So if we go back into Unity, we don't need to do anything with this script now. It's already saved in there, which is all good for us. Once that's compiled, that's fine. And sometime today, there we go. So now we need to go into scenes and go back to our main menu. And this is where things become a little bit more complicated because you can read this as a couple of different things. We need, firstly, a way that says there is no load game, there is no game save, so we can't load anything. But the second thing is to actually load into that game. So we'll do that second thing first and then do the first thing second. Sounds crazy, I know, but I'm a crazy game developer. What do you expect? Let's go to main menu control and into our main menu. Now what we need to do is create a method for load game. So much like we have with start game, let's say public void load game, open close bracket, open curly bracket. Naturally, we want to check if there is a load game first, but like I say, we'll get round to that. For all intents and purposes, though, we still need to have the button click, and we need to fade out, so we can copy those 2 lines of code, place them there. Next, let's go down to the coroutine that we will create. So if we go here, we can say I enumerator and in brackets, actually, we need to actually call it something, don't we? Load scene. So open close bracket, open curly bracket. If I can actually type the right things on my keyboard, it would help. So naturally, we need to yield, return new, wait for seconds 3, obviously for the fade out. And here, where we've got scene manager, load scene 2, this is where things become a little bit different. So we've now got to establish what scene refers to what. And what I mean by that is we are going to save player pref value as 2 because it is the second scene. However, scene 2 is actually our first scene. So we need to basically add a little bit of math to this to ultimately work out which is the correct scene to load. And to do that, what we'll do is we will say, let's say serialized field. We'll have integer, so int, and we'll call it scene to load, semicolon. Next thing we need to do is we need to establish our player pref. So we will serialize field once again and integer, and we'll call this one save transfer value. And what that is the number that's in our player pref. So we can say in the load game section, save game, so save transfer value equals, and then this is where we have the player prefs come into context again. So we say player prefs, if I can actually spell correctly, dot get int. So it's different here. It's the first one was set int because we're setting a value. This one is get int because we're getting a value. And then the name of our player pref. Make sure you type it exactly the same, because if you just do one letter wrong or put a space or anything like that, it won't work correctly because it needs to reference the exact same thing. So in this case, load state. So in our brackets, we put load state and then close bracket, semicolon. And then we say if load, if save transfer value is greater than 0, then we do the following, which is that button click dot play and fade out dot set active true. And then we need to start the coroutine, and that coroutine is this. And I've just noticed that these are outside of the norm. I've accidentally taken away a closed curly bracket. There we go. So yeah, we need to reference this load scene, which is here. So we can copy this line of code for start coroutine, place it here, and instead of transfer to class scene, we put load scene and save. So at this point, I don't really want to worry too much about what's going on. I just kind of want to set up the load game button now. We'll go back into the coding and we'll modify a couple of things just so we know we've got the right scene. So once that's done, let's go to canvas, let's go to load game, and let's set the button click. So list is empty, so click on the plus, menu control, click on no function, main menu, and load game. If we press play, hopefully we should be able to click load game and it will do absolutely nothing, which is exactly what we want. Perfect. So we know that the load game button is working, but obviously because there is no save state, it can't load anything. So now what we need to do is we need to establish the correct actual value of scene to load. So that's where this variable that we wrote comes into play, scene to load. How do we know what scene to load is? Well, all we need to do is take the value of our player pref and add 1 to it. So if we know we're going to load a game, that's when we can actually say scene to load is equal to save transfer value plus 1. semicolon. So that means that scene to load will now be equal to 3, which means that scene 3, if we go to our build settings, is the park scene. So that's how we can actually set it so as we go to the correct scene. Now, this may require a little bit more intuitive, I can't even say that word, a little later on. But we'll get round to that when we get to those scenes. So, next thing we need to do is where we've got this bit here, where we have load scene, rather than have the number 2 in the brackets, we need to put scene to load. So, scene to load and save. And then if we head back into Unity, give it a second just to compile everything we've created here. Shouldn't take too long. And that should be everything we need. So if we press play again now, and if we try pressing load game, it shouldn't work. However, let's go through. So let's start game now, but let's cheat a little bit. Let's pretend that we're going through that scene just to save time and make sure we save. Now head into the park scene, press play. And as soon as it starts, it will register that save. So we now have that load state set. So that is stored inside the game values itself. So if we go back to main menu now and press play, the game thinks we've got past that first scene in the classroom and we've made it to that save point of the second scene. So we can load game and it will take us to the park. So that's how we can easily get the game to remember where we have and where we have not been. Obviously, if you try clicking load game and there is nothing to load, nothing would happen whatsoever. But that's up to you, whatever you want to do with that. So next tutorial, what we will do is we will add in a credits scene. And this one's going to be a lot of fun to create because, again, it's using things that we've learned from various different methods throughout this development series. But yeah, we'll get this button working. We'll create credits, and because everyone likes credits, don't they? Show off what you've done. So remember to subscribe and click that notification bell to stay up to date with every tutorial I upload, and I'll see you next time.